Yes, sir. Had to put the stick in the box. Okay, so we're gonna talk about some voting today, man.
You said had to put the stick.
Had to put a stick in the box. Hold up the whole damn self. I'ma get lazy. Dang. How we do these? This is where I like my levels to be a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think they.
It's been a while since I've been in front of a sound file.
I think they're. Yeah. Pay no mind.
Pay no mind to the man behind the curtain.
Yeah. No. It is sounding good.
Cool.
Yeah. Okay. Hi, Avery.
We're already in?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Real simple like that.
Nice. That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. No transition.
How you been? It's been 3 weeks.
That sounds about right. Yeah. We both had our birthday. We're
man.
24 now.
24. And is that the reason behind the A24 hat and shirt?
No, but I guess
Here we are.
I guess that's what. Yeah.
We're here. We made it.
I didn't want to make a really corny joke saying I'm a 24.
I'm a 24-year-old.
That's awful. Okay, so for anybody who didn't watch the last one, we talked about the local Arizona elections, and that was mostly your idea. You wanted to come on here and just get some important information and dates out there for people.
Yeah, just to kind of start the conversation, if it wasn't being had already. And took a lot of unnecessary research, it turned out, because we went on the AZ. My girlfriend actually found the AZ voter guide, which hopefully we'll have linked in the description for you. But what I was trying to do is I would go by the websites, discover the candidates who was there, mostly on Ballotpedia, which is a great resource you can use as well. But in the tail end of my research, like 2 weeks of research in, my girlfriend's like, I know you were getting ready to do this, but I found this document that did everything that you've been doing for the past 2 weeks for you. So here it is. Thank you, by the way. Love you. But
it's good that you were being a diligent citizen without.
But it's all there for you, and hopefully we'll have that linked.
Yeah, so we're gonna try to make anything that we reference as like a resource or something in the description box below.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you Google Arizona Clean Elections Voter Guide, this wonderful PDF comes up with just like breakdowns of everything.
Yeah.
So for one thing, Arizona is having primary elections on Tuesday, August 4th. And then the last day to request a ballot by mail is July 24th. Mail back early ballot is July 29th. And the last day to vote early in person is July 31st. And polls are open from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Yeah. And that is a little bit subject to change. I saw an ad recently, so I don't know exactly when this is happening, that they are opening the polls a little bit earlier to kind of account for the COVID-19 mess. So just be on the lookout for that. I know exactly what those times are, but those are the official times for the website, and know that they are subject to change in these unprecedented times.
Yeah.
I think a cool way to start on this conversation is to talk about the sources. So we've already highlighted the Arizona Voter Guide. In the Arizona Voter Guide, it has the Arizona state legislators. So there's a difference between your federal legislations, the senators and the House members that go to Congress in Washington, and the House members and senators that go to Congress in Phoenix, Arizona. So on your voters registration, Arizona Voters Guide, you have a comprehensive list of all 30 districts in Arizona. So not the federal ones, but the county legislative district from 1 through 30. In my document, I focused on 12 through 30 because that was the metropolitan area. So that's what I have the most notes on. But if you are in the other areas of that, you can go to the Arizona Guide to look at your state legislators for your House and your Senate. Mark Kelly, you can just go to his website. Martha McSally, you can just go to her website. And then as far as the House members go, the House members to the federal House legislation, we didn't get a resource for that. But they're available on Ballotpedia, and they're also available on, well, I guess we'll have to talk about that. Because there are some great House candidates for the legislation, for the federal legislation. The next resource that we have is the Maricopa County. What is the link on that one?
Is it this guy?
Yeah, that's one right there.
Yeah, so it looks like this is azcounties.org/275/Maricopa-County. I I wasn't gonna read that URL, but then I saw how simple it is, so that's the URL.
Yeah.
We'll put it below and on screen and all that. But yeah, so azcounties.org, and they have a Maricopa County guide, and it looks like candidates for county office.
Candidates for all the positions in there, and your county include the district attorney, which I think is very important, the county assessor, which is the man who assesses property and tax values, which is great for education. And then there's the county recorder who does birth certificates and things like that, which is not, I don't know. That's cool. Good for him. And then what else do we have in the county? Sheriff, which Joe Arpaio is back. We gotta worry about that. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, Joe Arpaio's back. I thought we got rid of him.
You know, that's it's cool, whatever.
He's like friends with Trump now.
Yeah, well, I would be friends with Trump too if he pardoned me, you know. That's kind of
ASAP Rocky said no.
ASAP Rocky said I'll wait for the next.
He said thanks, bye-bye.
Yeah, we chilling here. Yeah. But Joe Arpaio's back. Paul Penzone has been the sheriff. He got rid of Tent City, which was great. Kind of some human rights violations going on in that area.
Sorry, can you scoot up a bit?
Yeah. Yeah, so Tent City, obviously, if you ever looked at, like, what were those things, like the hardcore prison docs or, like, Scared Straight documentaries, like Tent City, Sheriff Joe Arpaio, toughest sheriff in all of America.
And, like, when we say tough, like, we don't mean that in a good way.
No, that was his calling card. That's what he positively marketed himself as.
I just feel like that word has been very co-opted these days to, like, be a good thing to certain people.
Like people say he's tough on crime.
He's a tough one. And I'm like, I don't know, this guy's an asshole.
Yeah, we need thought through progressive ideals more than we need toughness, I would say.
Yeah, well, how, like, I remember, like, driving through, like, certain cities, like, when I was a kid, and people would have signs up that say Arpaio was watching, like, literally, like, he was, like, some mob boss.
Yeah, Arpaio, he definitely was a man who wanted to be fear and use fear to govern people. And maybe it's time we move away from that.
Yeah.
And we already did. And Paul Penzone's he's a decent candidate, and he's done some good work in Arizona. Mm-hmm. And the human rights infractions have been cut down a little bit since Joe Arpaio, so that's a pretty good option.
So something we were talking about just before, because I know you did a lot of research on individual candidates, were just some of the issues that to you personally you jump out at you the most. So
right.
I know that you were kind of celebrating the candidates who had more stuff about police reform and education as primary things.
So for me in this election, definitely one of the biggest deciding factors between candidates as I was looking for them was their having a stance on criminal justice reform, which a lot of people just ignored it for whatever reason or another. Maybe it's not what you think is in your constituency, but I think that it's a part of the public conversation now, and I think that everybody should at least be trying to address it. A great deal of candidates were, particularly at the federal House level. People are going to the U.S. Federal House of Representatives. One important one to look at, I think, is Anita Malik in District 6. Yeah, for Federal District 6, and that includes like Scottsdale and Fountain Hills. And she is a beautiful candidate, lady of Indian descent, an American citizen, and she had stances on legalizing marijuana and ending chokeholds and things of that nature. We can look at my notes there for what we had on Anita Malik, because I just kind of jumped to it randomly.
Yeah, you put she supports criminal justice reform that includes no private prisons, independent investigation, demilitarization, national complaint registry. Ooh, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Not specific on families separation. Supports Dreamers, against PACs, end prohibition on marijuana, defend our public schools and support pay raises for educators, stand up for refinancing programs for outstanding college debt, and great on reform.
Yeah, so that's Anita Malik going to the U.S. House of Representatives. The instant that I found her campaign, she also had another dude. Who's the dude right above her?
Carl Gentles.
Yeah, also a very good candidate. Had a 9-point plan on criminal justice reform. What struck me is that he was surprisingly unspecific on immigration reform, but also a strong candidate as well, just not as specific. So when I was going through the lines and I was like, okay, well, she had this much more to say, and that's literally what I did, is that she had this much more to say about what I care about, and Carl Gentles had this much less. So I had to go for Anita Malik on that one.
Something I really like that jumps out to me is the National Complaint Registry, because that's something we talked a bit about last time, is how it's like the police issue is like honestly like really complicated with all the different things that's wrong with it, and how like if we fix this one thing, it's like, oh, these union rules are still protecting them. And a big thing was how there just is not like a good steady data stream of like
Yeah.
complaints, and how like a lot of these guys, they can get fired and then reinstated by their chief like not long later, or they can just hop
move,
over to the next town and it's like nothing touched them, or maybe they just do have a bunch of complaints but it bears no weight. So I don't know what the specificity of what she wants is, but something you and I talked about last time is like a dedicated national task force like that specifically handles police misconduct. So in that way you have federal people looking into this stuff and then not state. Because something we spoke about is how like a lot of these people are interconnected, whether or not it's the police department and the DAs and city council members, and how like they kind of know each other, and like it might get kind of just state level corrupt sometimes. So having a little bit more like national oversight on these things would honestly like.
And she is in a unique position for what she's running for, because she's running for the U.S. federal House of Representatives. So that would be where that kind of gets hashed out. Obviously, it would have to go to the Senate as well. But just having more people in the room talking about it. And that's the great thing. Well, that's just one thing I want to point out about candidates like Anita and like some of the other ones that we've been looking at. People who had points as opposed to general stances on. I don't want to use, because to be 100% frank, this is something that I found when I was looking at Republican candidates, is that it would usually list out, we're in support of keeping immigration tough, we're in support of family first values, and just very general statements. And so what I like about, and when I saw Republicans like this, I have it written down in my notes, I would try to point it out, is that having specific notes that you can hold your representatives according to. So when the next voting election comes along, you can email them. You say, Mr. Such and Such, Mr. David Schweiker, you outlined these things in your plan, in your profile for your next election. You didn't meet X, X, and X, and X, and for that you have lost my vote. I appreciate your time. Hopefully next time.
That's actually a great point, because a lot of my frustration with like some of these people's non-specific websites and issue pages and things like that, sometimes that I feel like, oh, this is making it hard for me to vote for you the first time around, because it seems like I fuck with you, but like what's the details of these plans? Something you're pointing out is like whether or not the people who actually do put up complex lists, if they follow up to it.
Yeah, exactly.
So
that's a great tool for accountability is the idea there.
Yeah. And
I was really glad to see that in a good number of candidates, but there was a population of those who didn't get my pick for that.
I something I found recently too is just like with the Black Lives Matter movement this last month or so. I know a lot of people have been sending out emails, and then you kind of find out like who actually emails you back and that sort of thing. So like with the city of Tempe, I believe I emailed every single city council member and
Did you hear back from anybody?
The mayor. Council member Lauren Kuby is good. She got back to pretty much everybody. And I sent her one email regarding police budget, and then another separate email regarding like, hey, you guys should endorse monthly cash payments, because I'm just trying to like push people towards like UBI and just like giving people emergency relief during coronavirus. Yeah. And she sent me back like pretty specific emails that showed that she read it. Like there were certain keywords where I'm like, okay, that's not auto-generated. Like you would have had to read what I wrote to. And like I sent like resources and stuff saying like I hope you check these out, and she's like, I will. So she was really good.
And she's the vice what is it, the vice mayor?
That I don't know, but if she is good, that's good.
I thought Lauren Kuby, like I had a similar experience because I emailed them as well. I heard back from Lauren Kuby, and I think she's a vice mayor, and then I heard back from Arlene Chin, and she knew my father from working at ASU in the past.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so she hit me up and she said if you wanted to start a call and have a conversation, then we can. And we did. We had a brief conversation, and I told her I just wanted to get a feel for like what the process was and what sort of roles the city council members had. And it was a good conversation. It was very productive, and
on the phone or
on the phone. She hit me up and she had a time set up, and I talked to her assistant. We talked on the phone, and
Maybe you should ask her if you could like do a recorded one and just put it out there.
Yeah, right. Just to have it.
Do an interview.
But because we had talked about this one time in the past that you wanted to see if you can get the mayor on.
I think that'd be cool.
I think it'd be cool too, man.
We have like a newly elected mayor in Tempe, Corey Woods, and he seems like a younger guy. And like I don't know, part of me feels like if I emailed him, just being like, hey, you want to come just explain what you're about for an hour on a podcast that like pretty much only young people from Tempe listen to.
Exactly.
I feel
who knows?
I don't know. I think it's cool for us to just put in this little extra muscle to have a direct line with some of these people who like we might think aren't reachable, but they actually are, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And like the thing is, especially at the state level, man, these are your people. And like they're only going to listen to who talks to them. And anything else that they do is just going to be amorphously guessing at what people want, right? So
a big thing we gotta remember too is like in America, like our states are as big as countries in other in other places. So like we really are, you know, like with coronavirus and just seeing how anybody from Cuomo to the Oregon governor to Doug Ducey like handle things. It is like we just have like 50 like little presidents like deciding what's up, you know.
Yeah, so it's a beautiful system.
I get this email chain from the income movement, and they're always like hitting me up about like different ways to push UBI and like, okay, this is an important date to call people from DC. And they put out this email chain for me to basically send like one of those like pre-written but like well-written emails just out to everybody simultaneously. Like some, you know, like it's not like a resist bot thing, but it's like one of those.
Ideally,
it's one of those like pre-made things. So I had these emails sent out to like Doug Ducey and Martha McSally and like a few other different people, and it's just interesting to see how they get back to you, because like Martha McSally sent me back this long email in regards to my like UBI email, but she spent like 2 paragraphs just telling me like what like the history of 2020. She basically just laid out like on January whatever coronavirus. It was like reading the Star Wars.
Yeah, she tried to weed you out.
Opening. Yeah. Well, it just felt like so much real estate was used on.
Exactly.
Almost like tiring me out as a reader and not like actually addressing point for point what I had said. While that Lauren Kuby lady, she actually seemed to address things like pretty directly, but like Martha McSally, like it was like a whole paragraph just giving me like every single history point on coronavirus and every history point on all the like relief things that have been made, and she was like, it is clear that the economy is still not good, and I'll keep my eyes out for whether or not it maybe is a good idea to keep giving people money or not, or that. But like it was just so, you know, it wasn't like she was actually presenting like a dialogue with me about whether or not she thought like it was a good idea or committing to like doing or saying anything, you know, which I can get, but
it's sort of a view of these establishment people on the left and the right, but particularly the right in terms of like this libertarian ideal of let the government do its own thing, and not the government, let the economy do its own thing. Yeah. And that's just not a situation where that works, and it's becoming increasingly obvious or increasingly clear to the American people that some sort of intervention needs to be done. But we spend a lot of time electing people who are, you know, just whose beliefs are to not govern and to leave things alone and let things go, except for at the higher levels of society.
Yeah, you just look at like countries like Canada right now, where they are giving people like $2,000 a month, and how like our economy and our unemployment is just getting worse and worse and worse, and there's a majority of Democrats and Republicans like in support of like this idea, and it's like, guys, we just need more than like this one time $1,200 check. But we talked about this a bit last time.
We did a little bit.
We can move on.
Yeah. Okay. So we had talked about the county, where you can get your county information, and then there is honestly, so for your cities. Last time we went through the cities and talked about which ones were there, I think the most important ones on the ballot right now would be pretty much solely Mesa. Chandler's on the ballot too, which is where I live. I'm definitely going to put in a vote for Odd Harris if you've ever looked at him. Seems like a solutions-oriented person. Christine Ellis I had a problem with because she was from what I saw on her website, which was very brief and didn't have a lot of specific stances on anything. She said that she was a free market libertarian. And I don't really think that's what we need in America right now. And then from there was like Mark Stewart, who is already on the council.
Who are they representing? Sorry, what are they representing?
Sorry, these are the Chandler City Council people on the election.
Okay.
You get a choice of 3. And so for Chandler, I'm definitely going to pick Odd Harris. But honestly, for the rest of them, Not really too into what they had to say. Just some basic things about the economy, keeping things low, taxes, and regulation for business pretty much across the board.
What was Odd Harris all about?
Odd Harris is from what I saw, he was just he was a solutions-oriented candidate, looking for outreach, but also had he had parallels to everybody else in terms of keeping taxes down, which on the city level is not a big deal. Keeping taxes down and working on relief and solutions for the coronavirus, because people who were going into the office had a lot more to say about coronavirus than people who were already sitting there. So I mean, the only one in Chandler that has my vote for sure is Odd Harris. And the city level, I think what's very important, what we talked about last time when we talked about defunding the police and how the city councils are instrumental in that. As far as who has been on the national stage multiple occasions, the Mesa PD, they have an election right now, and the current mayor is up for grabs and 3 seats on their council. You would have to look into that a little more heavier than I did. I wasn't able to find anybody saying anything specifically about defunding the police. And as someone who's not a constituent of that, I didn't take the time to reach out and try to email anybody, but that would be something to do. And especially if you were looking into somebody who was going into the office and telling them that you would like some assurances on that before you gave them your vote, that would be one way to go about trying to enact some change if you live in the Mesa area. So we've talked up and down, and we've talked about. Do you want to go into Martha McSally and? Yeah. I mean, for me, to keep it really quick, I think they're both establishments in their party. I have a problem with establishments with the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, but I think when I saw a prediction on the seats that were likely to go into blue this year, because Arizona's a purple state this year, getting Mark Kelly into the Senate would get us at a 50-50 split in the Senate, which I think is a healthy thing for America. If not 50-50 majority in the Democrats' favor.
Something I realized watching back our last podcast is we jumped over to his website last time to check out his issues, and then and then the second we were on his guns page, we kind of just went down. Just kind of zoomed in, yeah. And we noticed how like his gun safety thing, like it seemed decent, but like it just didn't have much specifics. And I'd be interested to see what the specifics are if some of his other ones were, because when we checked out Martha McSally's website last time, it was it was
very vague.
It was very confused. Well, we just couldn't even find an issues page. Like, it was just confusing to navigate. But then like Mark, he has healthcare, veterans, economy and jobs, Medicare, Social Security, border, women's rights, climate change, some good sounding education, some good sounding stuff. And I'd just be interested to see if he has any specifics.
Take a look at education. That's a big one in Arizona.
Yeah. And like another thing like we talked about last time is like Martha is just having so many goddamn propaganda slam ads run against this dude.
Well, it's everywhere now, man.
No,
Martha had some bad ones too now.
Yeah, it's just, it almost like, this sounds really bad and uninformed, because it is, but it almost makes me want to trust him more. Just because I'm like anybody that's running this amount of propaganda towards someone. Maybe
it's some sort of, I can't remember who it was.
It just makes the other side to me feel even shadier, because why are you running these ads?
Yeah, they want you to think about it.
I think some of them are like probably privately run, but then some of them do say funded by Martha McSally at the end, and I'm like, for you to be running this sort of a slam piece on your opposition, it just seems like nasty.
She's got some slam pieces on her about just her like leaving people behind in the medical field. That's all YouTube ads, though. I didn't really pay attention to them.
Mark Kelly. He's an ex-astronaut as well, which is interesting.
Yeah, which is cool.
He said, okay, Mark knows that every goal we have, fixing our healthcare system, protecting our climate of the earth, and growing our economy for everyone, starts with great education. That means starting young, expanding access to quality early childhood education for everyone. That means K through 12 system that treats teachers like valued professionals, giving them decent wages, giving them tools they need, materials. Mark is proud to stand with teachers as they fight for higher pay and funding. This means ensuring all students have access to STEM and advanced placement. It says, right now there are 5.9 million job openings in the country, many of which cannot be filled due to lack of qualifications and training. He's committed to making some more student gains that experience without the burden of crushing debt. That can start with funding Pell Grants and other financial aid and lowering interest rates on federal student loans. The federal government should never use our students and families to make money. Yeah. Okay. So
To start there, that's a little more specific than his gun rights page, which makes sense because that's an issue that you can lose people on. And education is an issue that on both sides people are very concerned with. Raising teacher pay is something I heard up and down the ballot. Javier Ramos in my district for legislative on the state level. No. He was going into the federal House of Representatives. Was fighting for raising teacher pay as well. And there's a small constituency of people who are trying to get the teachers' pay raised. And then also there's a big argument between schools' choice and funding charter schools over public schools.
Well, something they bring up, we're like 49th out of 50 in education in the country.
Well, here's
right?
the argument that goes with that, Zane. So we are, and those are the public schools. Okay. But the charter schools are there's no data on that.
Oh.
So the people who want to send their people to charter schools are usually more affluent people, and they're taking they want to take their property taxes and add them to the charter schools that they send their kids to. And so we don't get the data on that and how good their education is and this, that, and the third or whatever. But if you concentrate the wealthiest parents, the wealthiest people's taxes into the wealthiest schools that are already doing well, then you're going to have this large pool at the bottom that's doing poorly.
Right.
So
what's the difference between a charter school and a private school?
Yeah, so
I've always been confused on what a charter school is.
Yeah, so the private school is just fully private, and then charter school is sort of the in between. So you have public, full funding from the government. Charter school is this in between notion where like these are schools that are maybe at one point were private and then have moved to getting what are those things, tax credits, stuff like that.
Okay.
And so they're just this in between move where they're private schools and they can be selective about who they bring in, but they also get funding from the government.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, I mean, and I'm not saying that they don't give a quality education, but if we funnel our money into schools that are already doing well, then we're going to leave people behind.
Yeah. Like we're not saying they shouldn't exist necessarily, but just, if our public schools are 49th, maybe like just divvy it up a little bit better.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's a big argument up and down the board, and Republicans are pretty steadfast on it. There is a lady out in Mesa for the state legislature. She's a House member. Her name is Michelle Udall. She's Republican, and she is kind of labeled as they call it a rhino, Republican in name only, because she voted against schools' choice is the bill to give wider funding to public schools as well as charter schools. And she is somebody that you can elect, especially if you're a Republican who's in favor of education, living in Mesa. Check out Michelle Udall.
Something I'd love to see any of these people talk about is like a dedication to putting less emphasis around standardized testing and things like that.
Yeah,
because I think over the years we've just kind of proven that it's just not the right indicator of like worth or skill, but like so much from scholarships to funding to just general educators' outlook on whether or not like that's just the benchmarker we use of like what people are worth. And I think that there just needs to be a lot less emphasis on standardized testing and telling everybody that they have to do the same traditional college routes. I would love to see candidates kind of put more of an emphasis in trade and skill-based schools, as well as saying like, hey, you can have a path even if standardized testing like isn't it. Because something I learned this last year, apparently the SATs were created like during one of the world wars, and we used the results to decide who to send to the front lines.
Yes. No,
like,
100%.
Like it was literally like a should we make you a soldier type test. Like that's what the SATs were. Now like we just still use that as the system of if you get a Pell Grant.
Yeah, our education system in general, man, if you want to get off the election for a second. Our education system was sort of founded in like the industrial, or it's like left over from the industrial age of like, put in X amount, get X amount out. We were teaching people to work on we treated our education system as a, what were those things called? The conveyor belts, or what did you call them?
Like factories or what?
Yeah, but what was that thing? Because that was like, you learned that in like social studies,
like,
man. It's like when Ford created the assembly line is what it was. When Ford created the assembly line, it was this industrial revolution. So yeah, they treat schools like an assembly line where you put in people to make good scores on these tests to increase the level of your school to get more funding. And but yeah, like you said, there's just this regurgitation of material is not actual knowledge, and we've lost sort of a level of critical thinking in this country. And also, I had a conversation with my friend, man. about how.
Sorry, can you just still scoot up?
Yeah, my bad.
No, you're good. It probably sounds fine, but I just
Yeah,
I
we're good.
I gotta
We're
make sure.
But like history is just like the way we teach it in America, man. It's a little bit of an indoctrination, bro.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
I think that's true of a lot of places too.
yeah. I mean, I'm sure.
But just to stay on America, like,
Yeah.
we kind of like we choose a beginning, middle, and end like very selectively.
Which I mean, like I guess, like you said, it probably happens everywhere, man. But it is coming to a head right now. Is kind of what we're dealing with, man.
Well, like there's this. I think you might know him. Like, there's this historian / author I really like named Graham Hancock, and he has 2 books about Egypt and another one called America Before. And he kind of likes to delve into all of the insanely interesting kind of undiscovered history based on the remnants of what we do have, and then he kind of draws these connections to talk about like the implications of what would be meant if this happened or if this happened. So to make that a little bit less abstract, he talks about like the pyramids and ancient like South American culture and like things like that, and being like, oh, how could these things be happening at the same time? And so something he really delves into with like the Americas is how like a lot of the time our education system kind of like has history start with Europe, but not only Europe, but like Europe a few thousand years ago or however long it was, and then we think of everything before that as like primitive, uncivilized.
Well, we start like Western society at the Enlightenment. Yeah. So I mean, and the Enlightenment was a great system of ideals that founded our country, you know. But before the Enlightenment, where there was the Arab, not the Arab, yeah, but the Arab Empire. I can't remember now, but like there's literally like there's like centuries of scientific like evidence of like astronomy, not astrology, astronomy, sciences, the scientific method that was being used in like the Middle East for centuries during the Middle Ages in Europe.
There was insanely sophisticated mathematics and science and space like observance happening in Africa like way before that. And then as far as like Native America goes, like there was like canal systems thousands of years ago. Like
Teshiklan?
Yeah,
I think that's right.
And something he was talking about is apparently like there's these like satellite images that make it seem like the Amazon rainforest possibly had grid systems that implies
I heard something like that.
Cities as large as Paris in the Amazon. And his biggest working theory is that like the Amazon rainforest is the world's largest man-made garden, which is that's a fun idea to me.
Yeah, it's cool.
But yeah, kind of like what you and I were saying, like the way that we teach history here is like very specific, and the way our school systems like prioritize like importance of not only information, but then also the benchmarkers of what makes us as students like worthwhile. It's a little bit off.
Yeah, what makes us as students worthwhile, but also what we're dealing with right now, which is the hierarchy. The way that we teach social studies in this country is to, I'm gonna get closer to the mic, is to
try to be two fists.
Is to teach people the social norm, the social hierarchy that we live in with, you know, Anglo-Saxon males on top. And so there's kind of this battleground that goes on. I mean, there's obviously the battleground against evolution versus teaching people creationism, but there's also what I think we should think about is how we teach people the place of America in the world, especially as we move into this next phase of like dealing with America as the last country to handle coronavirus, America as this country who is taking away people's right to speak, who has people on the borders in cages, who are seeking political asylum. I found out recently. Do you remember back earlier in the year? I forgot about this because I just hadn't connected them in my mind, but a whole bunch of people from Honduras and South America were coming up as asylum seekers, and there was like this whole like mass exodus of people like on foot going into the country, and they're going to the border to seek asylum.
I kind of remember this, but
so those same
this is how crazy our times are that something like that isn't ringing a bell with me.
But those same people who were seeking asylum are now the people who are in cages. I just thought that it was something random. But yeah, so it was those people. Because I mean, so yes, there's an influx. So what do you do with all of them? But let's not take away their human rights at the same time.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of stuff that we're dealing with, and like we need to. I think it would be helpful for us as Americans to just look at the world in a non-American centric way, right? We got a great system, and we have a beautiful way of being able to change our system. And that's the American dream, you know. Well, not the American dream, but that's the American government. That's the American system of doing things, is that we're able to change to the times. And we don't have to leave everything behind. I think there's something to be said about certain type leaving things behind, and that word means conservatism. But the idea that we need to keep certain people on top over other people and keeping the systems in place after we, you know, study them rigorously and find inequalities everywhere.
Yeah, here, like, this is something I have. Germany is a very common pathway to gain skills and embark on successful careers. 47.2%, nearly half of the German population, held a formal vocational qualification in 2016. So, like, I think in, like, America, like, our vocational and, like, skill training is at, like, 5% or something like that. And then you compare that to Germany, where you get, like, basically, like, half of people going and doing that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And it's, like, what we were saying earlier about just how we, like, value students and stuff like that, like, SATs really should not be the benchmarker. But also, like, as we go into the 2020s and, like, all the common jobs are going to get automated away, it's like all these common jobs are going to disappear, as well as, like, some higher end ones, because whether or not you're doing legal notes as like a law student, or you're doing radiology as a medical person, those are all jobs that can get automated. But things that won't get replaced are, for a while, or, like, very skill-based things.
Trades, like the literal trades, like plumbing is going to last a long time. Electricians are going to last a little bit longer. And
certain artistic things, or creating businesses and like being entrepreneurial. And those are the sorts of things that, like, non-traditional successful students can be great at, because they just need to be passionate about something and, like, apply themselves to some shit that they care about. But that kind of all starts with having the people we have in charge actually putting value into those things themselves, so that the pathways are created.
Not everybody can be a college student, right? And not everybody should want to have the burden of debt that comes with that, not knowing, like, there shouldn't be a such thing as undeclared majors, you know? Maybe that's just me talking out my ass, but I mean, like, if you're going to spend, like, thousands of dollars, you don't know what you're going to study, I mean, like, go to community college.
Yeah, I think there is something to be said about those people maybe being part of, like, an environment and a community and getting their brain, like, juiced up. But then that's where I'm like, I don't know, maybe hang out with your friends, your college friends friend group, and,
but I mean, like,
and like hold off on paying.
Or, like, you know, read some John Paul Sartre, read some Nietzsche. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can inform yourself. You can be a plumber. Like, when I was a painter, bro, that's what I did. I listened to LibriVox recordings.
We're describing the premise of Good Will Hunting.
Yeah, are we really? I actually haven't seen that movie, so my bad. But yeah, like, 100%. Use your time to your own advantage, man. The infinite knowledge of the world is at your fingertips, man. Use Wikipedia. Use YouTube. Don't spend $1,000 on education, man. I hope that's one of the things that dies with coronavirus as we kind of move forward, is just finding ways to make ourselves smart on our own.
I spent so much time on YouTube. I think it's, like, one of the most important inventions of, like, modern times. It's just so good.
It's communication, it's education, it's all of it.
Yeah. Another thing that candidate we were talking about, Anita Malik, and again, what is she running for?
She's running for District 6 of the Federal House of Representatives, and there are 9 seats. There are 9 seats for Arizona, so I don't know if you guys know your American history, or your American system of government. So there's 2 senators for every state, and then every state, depending on size, has a certain amount of House representatives. We have 9 in Arizona, and they're all up for grabs right now. I only did from 5 to 9 because that's the Phoenix metropolitan area, and District 6 is Anita Malik, and that contains, like, the Scottsdale area and Fountain Hills.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so she, another thing she has is end prohibition on marijuana. I am so surprised at how rare that is to be, like, a common position held, but that really just needs to be, like, a common position held, because it's like, whatever your stances are on all that, it's like the tax revenue would be freaking great.
Yeah, there's an economic argument for it.
There's so many people in jail for stuff that other people are doing semi-legally.
Well, that's where it gets iffy, right? Because putting people in jail more easily is a part of the prison industrial complex.
Well, yeah, but that's what we got to end. And it just seems like it should be more common sense for a lot of these people running to just be like, hey, let's stop doing that.
Yeah.
Because, like, for-profit prisons, like, for sure need to end. But then when it comes to having people in jail for stuff that everybody else, like, is literally going to a doctor to get.
Oh, my bad. Finish it.
No, go ahead.
That reminds me of another group of candidates running in District 27 or 26. It should be on my notes right here. There is a group of 3 candidates, 1 in the Senate and then 2 in the House, and this is at the state level, the state legislative district.
Is it this?
Let me see.
What's the name you're looking for?
It's for the Millennial Caucus, something like that.
Millennial Clean Elections?
Yeah, Millennial Clean Elections Caucus. That's in the Tempe area, North Tempe, for District 27, and they have probably the most extensive views page that I saw throughout all my research, and they're running together as 3 for the House and for 2 seats in the House and then 1 seat in the Senate, and they're all Democratic candidates. And just when they went through point by point for LGBTQ, for privatized prisons, ending cash bail, ending mandatory minimums, and all these things, those are things that I really love to look at.
Yeah, and for anybody who's not aware, when we say mandatory minimum, what that is in this country, there's a lot of laws held that basically means that certain crimes, no matter what, are required to have a mandatory minimum sentencing, and that can kind of lead to maybe somebody getting an extremely low-level drug offense, but then because like maybe they had a joint or something, but then let's just say the mandatory minimum,
a joint,
is like,
first-time offender, nonviolent,
like months in prison or something like that, or some crazy parole.
Yeah,
I'm making up those scenarios, but
and I don't have the statistics for these studies, but these have been studied and statistically proven to be leveled against black males at a disproportionate rate to white males for the same crimes. So yeah.
If you just had like law enforcement like overly arresting like people of a certain demographic in the first place, and then you have people
exactly.
And then also it's like, as we talked about before, like so many crimes are like due out of just circumstance and people like being like economically desperate,
circumstance and people, and keep going.
Yeah, and just being like economically like disenfranchised in the first place and like having to like figure something out, it's like, when people hurt, they figure things out.
Systemic solutions for systemic problems.
Yeah,
but
mandatory minimums kind of gotta
mandatory minimums is a huge thing. And cash bail is another thing. So if you need it's just, I don't know the details of cash bail actually, but it ends cash bail to where you have to pay to not get held in prison in the duration of the time between your arrest and your trial, which I guess would give you more opportunities to find a good lawyer, to, put your affairs in orders and things like that.
Just to play devil's advocate, because this is something I've heard other people talk about, and I've never done much of my own research. So, I feel like I've known about cash bail since I was a kid, because you're like watching some cartoon.
Yeah, exactly.
Somebody gets locked up and they're like, "Hey,
SVU
come get me out." Yeah, or maybe even like an episode of like Static Shock or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Like literally. Uh-huh. So like that idea is like with us since we're young. I've and just like a lot of things, I've never thought to question it.
Yeah.
So I understand, like, okay, that could be bad because certain people, maybe they're not able to make ends meet, and now you have like a disproportionate amount of people who are financially secure getting out of jail, and then people who aren't staying there, and then if anything, it's like they're there maybe because they're financially insecure in the first place. It just is a self-perpetuating system.
That's what it is.
If we get rid of that, what replaces it exactly? Like, does that mean, because the one thing I always did look at it as, and this might be like very ignorant and incorrect, but it seems like, okay, if you do have that money, at least you can have like a get out of jail like faster card. Yeah. So if there isn't cash bail, like how does that system then work to be more beneficial to the people?
Yeah. So
because I just want to understand.
First, I'm not confident that ending cash bail is going to is a get out of jail free card for people. It's this detaining period between the time when you're arrested between the time of your trial. And I think that one of the biggest injustices about it is that it's just on its face a system that benefits the rich and takes away from the poor. So, I mean, if everybody's equal under the law and innocent until proven guilty, and only because somebody has a certain amount of money, they can get away from, spending that time in prison to put their affairs in order and such, and because if you're in prison, you only have so many phone calls, you only have so many times where you can communicate with people. And also, when you're thinking about a poor person, as you said, when they are in prison and they can't afford it, or suddenly they do have to afford it, say that they get somebody to afford it, now that debt has been transferred down the line to somebody's parent, to somebody's wife, and now that's just more poor. Yeah. It's just another tax on the community to keep people down,
Yeah.
to keep them poor, and keep them struggle for funds.
Would the idea be to just let these people out just earlier then?
Yeah, I
and
guess
not
if you
make
want to
them
if you
go
want to
through
worry
this?
about people running out around and things like that, I mean, there's still, I mean, the warrant system exists. So if you have anybody, you can run them that way.
Well, I guess in other words, let's say like there's some like wealthy guy who did something, he's arrested, and they're like, okay, you got to stay here for a certain number of days, but if you pay up, you can leave right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Would the replacement to cash bail be to just let people out right now and just not make them like
Yeah, let them out and then have. I mean, you could do anything. I mean, I don't know exactly what the process would be, but then you could just have somebody out on parole with a parole
Okay.
officer with them. That would be my just off the cuff solution there. The idea that what puts me on the face of the problem with it is that it's just a blatant example of how the rich get away with how you are able to buy your way out of the justice system in America. So you can afford a better lawyer, you can afford to not be held, and then if you're a person of a certain status in class, they have nice prisons. Like I can't remember.
Yeah.
I was watching the Joey Diaz podcast of
I love Joey.
Cheech was there, or who got to jail? Cheech and Chong.
I believe
think Chong got arrested.
Tommy Chong.
Yeah, Tommy Chong was arrested, and he talked about how he was just in the fancy prison. I'm like, they got fancy prisons? Like they got, it was like, he said like 7 times in the podcast, he's like, yeah, it was just like camp, man.
Yeah, I remember that.
I
Yeah.
was like, well, this is BS. I mean, like, this is terrible. Then.
I remember he was one of the celebrity like Yang Gang endorsers, and it was because Yang had a lot of stuff about legalizing marijuana and pardoning all nonviolent drug offenders and shit. And then he got kind of into it, and he was like, "This shit makes sense." But yeah, I remember he was talking a lot about like the times he's had to go to jail, and he was like, "I didn't want to leave."
Yeah. Well, since we're on this right now, I think we could talk about the county attorney right now, real quick. County attorney. Let's talk about the candidate right now. The county attorney right now is Adel Allister. She is a Republican. She doesn't. From what I saw, I'll start it this way. Back when we were still in the movement, when the movement was a little more in Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter Phoenix Metro had a meeting called a Zoom meeting with all the candidates for the county attorney. And this was because the current county attorney left, so there was a vacancy. So one of the Adel Allister ended up taking that seat until the election that's coming up just now. And they called for a Zoom meeting. And the only 2 people who said yes were not Adel Allister, but it was Julie Gunnigal and the other gentleman who, this will be on the Maricopa County page. I forget his name.
Is this what
For a county attorney. Yeah, this is the website here. And we'll go down to, attorney there. So Will Knight and Julie Gunnigal were the only people who agreed to even speak to Black Lives Matter Phoenix Metro, which was a good sign at first. And Adel Allister is the current candidate. And we have Julie Gunnigal and Will Knight. Will Knight's a great character as well, but Julie Gunnigal has greater specificity on ending cash bail, working on getting privatized prisons out of Arizona. We can just go to her page right now if you click on her face.
And really quick, this link we're looking at is the azcounties.org Maricopa County list, which we'll have in the description below. We're looking at Julie Gunnigal.
Julie Gunnigal. And you
name.
gotta vote for her. You gotta vote for her. We're talking about equality.
Her page is slick looking. We got a good Squarespace.
Yeah, somebody paid for that Squarespace, which is nice. I think you're on her endorsements right now.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah, platform is what you're looking for.
There we go. Well, she has a good 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 things. That's pretty good.
Yeah. So, address mass incarceration by implementing sentencing reform. It's kind of what we started talking about.
It says, since 2000, Arizona's imprisoned population has grown nearly twice as fast as the state population. What?
Yeah.
With Latin and Latinx Arizonans disproportionately serving in correctional facilities, our current system has only served to drive up the length of sentences and provides little to no incentive for rehabilitation while incarcerated. She has her little intro paragraph talking about what she wants to do. This would represent a 26% reduction in our prison population and average yearly savings of $250 million. Once achieved, we can reduce our incarcerated population while keeping our community safe by focusing on re-entry, reduce the average length of stay, and diverting drug cases to treatment, which is something I'm a big fan of. You and I last time talked about legalizing opioids, creating safe injection sites, legalizing marijuana, and just basically taking drug-related people out of the crime system and putting them more into the help system.
Treating it as a health issue. Yeah, and like she pointed out here, which I think is very powerful, is that she says that she's giving savings of $250 million. Like, these people are, we're spending tax dollars on the prisons and keeping them open and feeding people, Yeah. And so keeping people out and then putting them back into capitalism where they have to fend for themselves, like that's a libertarian argument right there, man. Like, we got to keep them together. We got to help people out, obviously, but one way to help them would be to keep them out of, abusive prisons, or just prisons in general, where they don't have the right to vote and they don't have the right to have a voice in their own government. People who haven't committed violent crimes and people who sometimes are disproportionately put in there for reasons based on skin color.
Yeah, something we talked about last time, and I wound up linking it in the description because I didn't have my specifics off the top of my head, but we were talking about how, like, apparently, like, there's, like, these Scandinavian countries that have prisons where, like, they do such a good job with, like, focusing on re-entry to society and setting people up with, like, rehabilitation and skills when they're there, that there's actually cases of people having, like, percentile increases in hireability when they leave prison. Like, they leave prison as a more qualified, hireable person, and it's like, here you're just kind of like branded with this like perpetual stain that you walk around with, and it's like, oh, everything I do now, from getting a job to anything else, is harder because
so everything on a scale, right? And I mean, like, maybe we don't have to go all the way that way, but I think there's somewhere in the middle where we can meet, and that's what being a progressive is all about.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I just think that if we're sending people places, it should probably be to, like, get them rehabilitated and make them better than when they were coming in, rather than making it just this, like, humanity stripping system where we just, like, put people in adult timeout where they're doing nothing with their time but just kind of getting mentally beaten down and then coming out with a brand, basically. Yeah.
I don't know if I talked about this on the last time that we were here, but just that the level of contempt that we treat our criminals within the level of contempt we treat our criminals in the society, and how that's a big problem, and it's a cultural problem. But I think there's just another way to do it. And if we looked at all crime as sort of a health problem, then we could diagnose ways to keep people out of these lines. There's always going to be a little bit of crime. There's always going to be a little bit of violence, just because people are people.
I was reading this Atlantic article on, like, whichever Scandinavian country this is, whether it was Denmark or what, and it was showing how these prisons literally, they're kind of almost like community homes, and the prisoners are able to wear their street clothes. There's no prison uniform. They're allowed to leave when they want to see their family for dinner and come back.
Really?
And it was saying how, like, I think it was probably an American journalist writing this piece, and how, like, the narrative they were kind of putting into it was like pulling up to the prison and thinking, are we at the right place? And where does the jail part of jail start? And it was just explaining, like, no, this is fine. This kind of works. And people, like, just leave here. Because it's like, if you think about something like AA, it's like, if you're trying to rehabilitate people in a facility like that, ideally you don't want it to feel like prison. Ideally it should be, like, kind of comforting and somewhat, like, uplifting to a sense, So, anyways, we were looking at Julie Gunnigal, and she wanted to focus on reentry, reducing the average length of stay, and diverting drug cases to treatment. I'm down with those things. And remind me again, what's she running for?
She's running for the county attorney, and that's for Maricopa County. But Maricopa County encompasses Phoenix, Chandler, Gilbert, Scottsdale, so all the big ones. So like, almost everybody's going to have her on your ballot. She's, what else do we have here?
One of them just says end systemic racism. I'd be interested to see what her breakdown is.
Yeah. It's good to be oriented towards that. It's a big thing to conquer, but we're for it.
It says, be committed to the transparent collection of uniform data, be committed to reforming drug prosecution, and
I think that's a big one.
Be committed to stopping the school to prison and foster care to prison pipeline. Passing raise the age legislation are all data driven. Here, ending zero tolerance, providing vocal support and opportunity for restorative justice in the system, and passing raise the age legislation are all data-driven efforts I support to make this a reality. To truly address systemic racism, we must start with the culture of the county attorney's office, creating a harassment-free workplace and providing equal pay. Our first steps in keeping and recruiting talented attorneys who value equal justice.
Yeah.
Cool.
And this is a beautiful thing, man. I mean, this is the same county that, 5 years ago or within our lifetimes had Joe Arpaio, know? And you have somebody here who's committing to, and, when the next couple of years come around, we'll have to talk about what happened and, like, if she really did some work for this kind of thing. But she's oriented towards it, and she's committing to it. And she's the top on the list, too, so you don't even have to think about it. If you have the Democratic primary ballot, just check, and you'll have already checked Julie Gunnigal. But honestly, one of the most important positions that we have on the ballot in the primary right now, and one of the most important positions in the county.
Okay.
And yeah, especially when it comes to criminal justice reform. Yeah. Did we get the names of the millennial clean elections?
So for LD 26, North Tempe and parts of South Phoenix in the Democratic primary, in the Democratic Party primary for the Senate, Jana Granillo is running against incumbent Juan Mendes. Is that what you were?
Yeah. So Juan Mendes is one of the members, and then if you look at his name, Juan Mendes is running a joint campaign with Athena Solomon and Melanie Hernandez, and they have, again, the most extensive list of views and lists, and it goes from women's rights, trans LGBTQIA rights, prison reform, voting reform, ending, looking at gerrymandering. Man, let's just pull up this page really quick. You can look up millennial clean elections. This is for North Tempe, so I think some of your listeners will be in there.
So Mendez for Arizona.com.
Yeah, just go straight to priorities, because their priorities are all collected in the same area. So for all three of them, this is what they've committed to. First thing on their list is policing. And then just if you read the red bullet points, though, people will get an idea.
Demilitarizing police departments, increased transparency and accountability, which says every police officer should wear a body camera while performing official duties with records maintained for a period of time. The state must eliminate qualified immunity so that officers will not be sheltered from lawsuits when negligent or engaging in unlawful conduct. This legislature should also limit uses of force in order to prevent the needless loss of life. Strengthening the police misconduct registry. Police cannot have unchecked or unbridled power. Yada, yada. Reprioritize investments in people and communities through education, healthcare, and housing. Diverting resources away from our criminal punishment system may seem like a bold idea until we realize that conservatives have defunded public education, corrupted healthcare, and made housing unaffordable. Yeah.
And then just scroll down a little bit, because this is
education.
So they got education. Just keep going for a little bit. This is
solve our teachers shortage crisis. Stop school privatization and segregation. Teach more, test less. Oh, that's what I was talking about.
Yeah. I didn't mean to get to that.
Accessible, affordable, higher education. Safely educating students during a pandemic. Oh, that's cool. So they already have some Corona stuff on here.
And then they got healthcare, and then just kind of the big genres, just so people know how wide ranging they're.
For his pandemic thing, it says schools must follow the CDC guidelines and evidence-based practices that slow the spread of coronavirus, including easy access to PPE, cleaning supplies in order to reopen. Schools should be able to delay start dates, enact distance learning, implement hybrid options for instruction. Okay, so it just seems that's good.
Yeah.
Because Trump recently made it to where supposed are supposed to not report their data to the CDC anymore.
Something about
send it in
the CDC.
send it in to Trump himself or whatever, or a Trump org, and I'm like, how the fuck is the hospitals gonna just not email the info over to the CDC anymore? Yeah,
we'll see how that goes. I
want them to just break the law and do it.
Yeah, I mean, well, here's the thing.
The CDC should have that data. That doesn't.
I mean, it's silencing of data and silencing of science and the truth. It's censorship. But I think Trump is going to do kind of a 180 on this Corona stuff, because he's really losing in the polls on Corona. He's been ignoring it ever since he stopped doing the the daily reviews,
The
or whatever?
briefings?
The daily briefings.
Well, the briefings were like his rally replacement, where he was just like, "Hey, here's how I'm
Well,
gonna come
yeah, it
out
wasn't
here and
great.
get attention."
But then he bombed when he did the whole like spray Lysol inside of people thing, and then he stopped doing it. But he stopped doing it, and now like people were just like, okay, the president is gone, and he left us for like 4 months, and so like people are like, okay, well at least Biden is here saying, you know, just some very basic stuff like, you know, wear your mask, which Trump hasn't said until today, like literally like
Trump came out today or yesterday.
So now he's changed his tune a little bit. So I think that probably what could follow that is like CDC getting their numbers again, hopefully. But Trump has responded to that. And let's not give him too much credit because it doesn't take that much to tell people.
Sidestep.
What's up?
Did you see the reporter ask him about Ghislaine Maxwell?
No, I didn't.
You know who that is, right?
I do, yeah.
Okay,
that's the Epstein case.
Yeah, Ghislaine Maxwell is like Epstein's like partner basically,
Yeah.
and she like was responsible for a lot of that. There's so many photos of like her
and Trump, her and
Clinton, her just all of the big people.
Yeah.
A reporter asked Trump, like, hey, what do you think about Ghislaine Maxwell? We know she's going to prison. We know that there's been, like, some things around her, like the Prince Andrew case or whichever prince it was.
Yeah.
I don't want to drag the wrong prince through the mud, but freaking... And he literally said, his answer, he fumbled this so hard. He literally said, honestly, I wish her well. I wish her the best. He says, I'm not up to date on what you're talking about, so I can't really speak on it. But he said, I don't know what you're talking about with the Prince thing, but I remember her from Mar-a-Lago, and she was cool, and I wish her the best.
Wow. This man is in some kind of rock.
He basically...
I mean, he's busy, but still.
With the Epstein thing, he basically just said, like, oh, I never really knew him. You guys are just looking at circumstantial photos and videos, which is just the most off-your-shoulder excuse he could give. Mm-hmm. With her, though, he was so barely briefed.
Yeah.
Which is crazy, because if he does actually know her, he knows, like, her connection to all that shit. So it's even weirder that he answered that way. It's almost like he answered like we didn't know that we know who she is.
Uh-huh. He's on some strange things right now.
Anyways, that shit was ridiculous. Maybe his strategy was to act like he didn't know as much as possible, so then he could feign innocence. Like, what? I'm just learning all this. Maybe that was his strat.
Yeah, I don't know. That is a horrible case, though. Man.
Anyways, we can move on. We're looking at Mendes for Arizona.
Yeah, so this was Mendes, Athena, and I forget the last name, but they're all members of the Millennial Clean Caucus. Publicly funded campaigns. They've all gone together to run for the seats between the House and the Senate at the state legislative level.
Is this District 26?
This is District 26, North Tempe.
Okay, and it said some parts of South Phoenix.
Yeah, so it's weird, and this is because everything is gerrymandered, by the way. But like things are just like Phoenix has like at least 4 districts from the map that I was looking at, and so there was South Phoenix, there was North Phoenix, there was Glendale, and then just all over the place. So there was like 4 separate ones there, and there was downtown Phoenix had its own district, South Phoenix had its own district, West Phoenix had its own district, Avondale had its own district. Avondale's a different city, but like the city of Phoenix had like several of them, and then the way that Scottsdale has 2 of them. So there's North and South Scottsdale, and then Fountain Hills is in both the districts in Scottsdale as well, and then like I forget which district it was, but there was a whole like line going into and out of. So just some weirdly drawn things, and you can definitely tell that it was just blatant gerrymandering and keeping people. I mean,
for environment, it says water pollution, clean energy, and clean jobs. Arizona is experiencing a 20-year drought and lacks a sustainable plan for the future of our water. I saw one of the guys on your packet said something along the lines of like having a 100-year plan to make sure
that was Javier Ramos.
The next century of Arizona has water, and that got me real existential, because I was like, right, we need to have
I mean, like there is a huge,
we don't talk about these
there's
things.
A really long history of like Arizona water legislation because like there isn't any here. So like we have to literally do some really creative like.
And Phoenix is the 5th most populated city in America and the number 1 fastest growing. So we're gonna need a lot of water.
We'll figure it out.
We're all sweating. It's 120 degrees. The population's never been higher.
That's crazy.
Things are drying up more than ever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But yeah. So those are things that like you never think about, but you look at your local elections, you're like, oh yeah, these are issues. They got women's rights.
For women's right, it says universal access to contraception, equal pay, and the era, pro-choice, and hashtag. You want to say that one?
What's that?
Okay.
It's hashtag let it flow.
Oh my God, that's what it says?
Yeah, let it flow, baby.
It says women incarcerated in Arizona do not have access to a reliable supply of pads and tampons, and it looks like they want to correct that. That's fucking crazy.
That's straight out of Orange is the New Black.
You're right. That is like a whole plot line in there. How's that even remotely okay?
Yeah, I mean it's not, but we're totally okay with denying the rights of people who have.
Well, you just think about how, like, people, like, if you're in prison, right, they're like, okay, you get a bed, you get a toilet, you get food and water, occasionally you get exercise, and how, like, if you have, like, an injury, I assume you go to medical, and I don't think that the medical is probably all that good in a prison.
Yeah.
But, like, if you want to, like, consider that, like, maybe not an injury, but a condition, and, like, they're just not giving people that's fucking absurd.
I mean, but buying that many tampons is expensive as hell, so maybe we should just keep people... have easier ways to keep people out of prison for years and years and years.
And if they are there,
to exploit
keep them
them
there
for free labor.
Less long.
Yeah, exactly.
Jesus Christ. Jobs in the economy, living wage, economic fairness, good paying jobs, strong foundation.
This is the Millennial Clean Elections Foundation for District 26.
Civil rights, they have racial justice, LGBTQIA rights. Wow, they did the whole acronym.
Yeah, they did the whole thing. They know them all.
Voting rights, housing, immigration. Yeah, okay, so this is a very...
It's super extensive.
Yeah, so we're on millennialcleanteam.com/priorities. This is a very extensive list. So we're looking at Juan Mendes, Athena Salman, and Melody Hernandez, and they're kind of just all doing stuff together.
Yeah, so this would be a good thing to explain. So on the Arizona legislative, so the state legislations for laws within the state, it's divided up like this. There are 30 districts, and in each district, you have senators and House members, just like the national level. Every district has one senator and 2 House members. There's no population based on population. There's no number of House representatives based on population. It's just 2 for every district. And yeah.
Something I just want to throw out there for any of my Los Angeles listeners, I'm all about, for LA, District 34 for Congress, you guys got to vote in David Kim. David Kim is for $15 an hour, Medicare for all, and universal basic income.
Word.
He's been... he's like a young, gay, Asian guy, and the dude he's running against like takes money like from like the prison system and shit like that, and he's just kind of been there for a while. You guys, if you're in Los Angeles and you can vote in 34th District, get David Kim in there for Congress.
Yes, sir.
This dude wants to get us healthcare, UBI. He's been endorsed by Marianne Williamson and Andrew Yang. There's a lot of Bernie people who've been like pressuring Bernie to endorse him as well. I just know that I have a lot of friends out there in Los Angeles.
Cool.
So if any of them are somehow still listening to this,
or
if you know anybody in LA, go tell your friends to endorse David Kim for Congress, CA 34. I just remembered my boy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's cool, man. Again, so what we hopefully will have is all the links in the description for these 3 main documents. Really 2 ones that you should really focus on, which are the voter guide, which was organized by the Clean Elections Campaign, independent from the Republican and the Democratic Party. It has all 30 districts that I talked about, and it has all the candidates for that Senate and the House. And there's a brief paragraph about what they're running for. In addition, it also has their website listed on there as you read through. On the county site, you'll have all the positions, which is from corporate commissioner down to attorney to the sheriff to county assessor to county recorder. And you'll just go through, same type of deal. You'll see a paragraph where they list off a brief little bit about what they're running for and a link to their website. And this, as me and Zane are talking about what's important to us, and me talking about candidates as I was researching who really stood out to me, when you go in and on your ballot, it'll say you're in District 17. It'll say you're in District this and that and the third. And you can look up and go in through there. And hopefully we've done a good job of locating everything for you. And yeah.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that I really want to get off? No, Anita Malik, Judy Gunnagle, the Millennial Clean Team, Javier Ramos I'm voting for. Who else am I voting for?
I wanted to bring up this troll that you found.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
What is his name?
Avery did some very diligent research, and he was breaking down all the districts for us. I believe this is... So you broke it down by Democrat, Republican, and Independent, and I was reading your document.
Oh, no.
We got to District 6.
It's not unbiased.
And,
My bad.
And under Independent, you brought this one guy named Gennaro Napolitano.
Gennaro Napolitano.
Whatever.
It's an Italian
Whatever
name.
his name is, and you put, to the best of my research, I think he's a troll, and I'm here for it.
Yeah, man.
I
he's
clicked
cool.
on this dude's page, and for all we know, he's serious. I don't know, but this dude's profile picture is just...
Yep.
He looks like an ASU student wearing a gold chain and a top hat.
Yep. A top hat.
And
Like-
there's seemingly zero information on him.
Yeah.
It looks like a mugshot he submitted himself.
Yeah. So
But,
Gennaro Napolitano. If you're in
Well, no,
district,
because
if you're in
District
District 6,
6,
vote for Anita Malik. But if you
Yeah, but
if you want to laugh, look at Gennaro Napolitano. It's
yeah,
like,
hopefully we're not swaying the election in a
Yeah.
negative way right now. But yeah, that shit gave me a good laugh.
so there's some good candidates out there, man.
Yeah.
Better than you would have thought. I mean, because people do get trapped in this idea that, Arizona locked in red state, but not this year. For whatever reason, for better or worse, there's a growing population of people like you and me. There's a growing population of people of Latinx descent, and a growing population of people of color, and just the city centers where we live,
Yeah. And if anybody is listening to this from outside of Arizona, there's an organization I really like named Humanity Forward. They basically take 100% of their donation money and just send it out to people as like cash relief right now. But another cool thing Humanity Forward is doing is they're endorsing candidates for local elections across the country, and they namely focus on ones who support basic income as well as data rights, and I've seen just a lot of cool candidates from like various different states and districts across the country just kind of come up on Humanity Forward, and a lot of them are kind of oddball people that maybe you wouldn't hear of otherwise, but then they kind of use this to give them some support and momentum. And I've seen people show up on there from Nebraska to Michigan to Texas, all sorts of people, and some of them have like won their primary race and now are going on to the main race. So that's something you can look at. And for all this Arizona information, we'll have all the links we discussed in the description below.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
All right, Zane. Well, it was good talking to you, bro.
Yeah.
And,
do you have any updates on your comic book?
well, we're just drawing away, man. We're drawing away. We are opening up an app before holiday 2020, and that's going to be a system where you can post your own content as well as look at ours. And really excited about that. Again, I work for noirseason.com, owned by Johnny O'Brien, former NBA baller. I'm working on a project right now called Evolution of Autumn Walters, about a girl who is doing her thing, trying to start her rap career, while her family is ex-CIA connected to the Black Illuminati. So we're doing some wild stuff, man. I was gonna say some profanity, but I hope that the kids can listen to this so they can get they can vote, baby.
I definitely hey, if anybody's voting, they're 18. They're good.
Yeah. You can hear the word shit. You can hear somebody say shit. You 18, you voting. You can go to war. You can die for this country.
Well,
and you can love this country and still want to change it. Let's not shame people for. Good.
All right. Yeah, we were in the middle of signing off, and then something happened with the mics, and now we back on. But we're saying goodbye anyways.
Yeah. Peace out.
Avery, we got to have you back to just talk about none of this stuff. And we're just gonna talk about pop culture and comic books and all that good shit.
Back when the world's back to normal.
If we wanted to make this twice as long right now, we could just keep going. But I don't want to scare off the people who actually wanted to come into this trying to learn something. And
there we go.
So hopefully, this good hour of Arizona political things will be helpful to you.
Yep.
And here, let's read those dates off one more time before we sign off. Okay, so there is an August 4th primary election. There is a last day to request ballot by mail on Friday, July 24th. There is mail back early ballot Wednesday, July 29th. And there is last day to vote early in person Friday, July 31st. Mm-hmm. We are recording this today on the 22nd. These dates are coming up.
Yes, sir.
So let's, if I put this out tomorrow, then that means tomorrow, guys, on Friday, the 24th, that's your last day to request a ballot by mail. So request that shit by this Friday.
Yeah, request it. Stay safe.
Okay.
Social distance.
All right, Avery.
All right, man.
Good shit.
Peace.
Let's